We are back. Saturday at Nissan Stadium turned out a lot the way most of us thought it would, and that is that Tennessee would win going away against the Virginia Cavaliers. But there's a lot to talk about in the aftermath. And with that, we welcome Knoxville sports talk show host Tony Basilio to our microphones. Tony, how are you?
Never a dull moment, guys. Never a dull moment.
I believe it. So here's what, just sitting watching on television all weekend, here's what struck me. There isn't a defense in the country that looks quicker to get to the football than Tennessee. That's the first thing that hit me.
Yeah, the speed's a lot better. I'm trying to temper what I think about that game because the opponent was so bad, guys. And how bad is bad? Well, this week, Virginia plays at home with James Madison. And Virginia right now, they opened as a 6-point underdog. It's been bet up to 7. So I'm not sure how many games Virginia is going to win this year, but JMU is a favorite against them. So that can't bode well. But Tennessee's front 7 is a lot quicker than it was. They're getting better and better athletes, and they're developing guys, which, again, we've talked about that here. That's kind of the secret sauce with Heupel and his staff. They've been really able to develop people.
So it seems to me one of the hard things to do is simulate that kind of speed. Certainly, Virginia never saw that in practice. They couldn't possibly simulate that. This is simply that they're really getting it done in recruiting, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. And they're developing people. So, the Pierce kid who we saw, and they've gotten a couple good players out of the portal as well. This Peely kid from BYU at linebacker, they feel very good about. But, George, they're recruiting a different level of defensive player. And in this class, there's a few more of those guys. My question mark for Tennessee coming into that game was going to be on the offensive line. And I don't know how much they answered that or didn't answer that. Because, again, the opponent was such that I don't know what kind of conclusions you can draw other than Tennessee a couple years ago was thought to be among the dregs of society as it related to major college football. And in 2 short years, there's a Grand Canyon between themselves and teams like Virginia now. A Grand Canyon. Like, Virginia didn't belong on the field with them. So, and that's just happened in 2 years. So good on Josh Heupel, his staff, everybody involved. It's terrific.
Okay, I can guarantee this got talked a lot about in your post game. We'll go on the left to Joe Milton. Milton did some really good things in the game, but there is also a sequence in one possession where it looked like he tried to dial up his fastball, try and get it to about 104 and be a Aroldis Chapman. And on 3 passes in a row, he wasn't anywhere close. So how much are they having to, in the middle of a game, sort of dial him back and say, okay, let's get it back to what it has been working?
Well, they had a series of empty possessions, right, where they went 3 and out a few times, which that's not what Josh Heupel's team is built to do. Their defense is not built in games of consequence to withstand that. And a lot of that, as we talked about it on our Garza Law post-game show that we did after the game, a lot of that sort of happened once Tennessee had a drop. Ramel Keaton dropped the ball he should have caught. Probably would have gone for a score. And then after that, it looked like Milton got, I don't know, bothered by that, flustered by that, distracted by that, whatever the term is you want to use. But it took a few series to get it back. The thing Tennessee fans have to realize, and I've been saying this all preseason, I think Joe Milton's okay. I don't think that he's what people project on him. I don't think he's going to be a great player. I think he's going to be okay. And okay is good enough. in that offense, like Saturday, he was okay Saturday. And he put up enough numbers to be a offensive player of the week in the league. Now, granted, it was probably not the best week in the league in terms of the competition the league faced. Florida and LSU didn't exactly adorn themselves in glory, shall we say, stepping out of the conference. So I guess the award had to go to someone. I just think when it comes to Joe Milton that he needs to avoid those stretches like we saw. And then the other thing, George, is Tennessee's got to be better on third downs. In his 3 starts so far as quarterback, and people think this is nitpicky, but it's reality. And I'd like to ask Kelly about this because the reality of this deal in these modern offenses is you have to stay on the field. You've got to figure out a way to convert on third down. Their third down conversion percentage with him is about, in those 3 games, is about 20 points lower than it was. It's in the early 20s, where Hendon Hooker was like 45% and Joe Milton's like 22, 23, whatever that number is, somewhere in that neighborhood. My point is, when you play games of consequence, you can't do that on third down. They've got to figure out a way to get in third and manageable situations with him.
Kelly, jump in on that. He brings up a really good point about, a defense, because one of the things you don't want is a quick 3 and out, and all of a sudden your defense got to go back out there.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's the money down. That's what we talked about when I was in the NFL. You've got to be able to stay on the field. And if you're watching the Florida State LSU game the other night, I could have told people in the first half that LSU was not going to win the game. They could not get Jordan Travis off the field on third down. He was killing them. They tried to rush 3, which you can't do. If you're going to rush 3, you better spy him. If you rush 4, they wasn't getting there, and he was moving around. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. Now, defensively, Tennessee's pretty good at getting people off the field.
Pretty good.
They've been really good the last couple of games going into last year. So it was pretty amazing what their defense did. We just talk a little bit about like the Aaron Beasleys and some of those defensive linemen. They had a couple of guys. A Pierce guy I think he had 2 sacks, and there was another guy that had some forced some tackle for losses. Just
Barron had a couple. Yeah,
that's right. Absolutely.
They know that their front 7 is the strength of their team. Now, I told you guys that I kept hearing in practice that Tennessee's offensive line was getting whipped daily occurrence. And they're concerned. They're still concerned because you really don't know offensive line. What you have, do you go to Florida? Because you're going to see good athletes against Florida. And no offense to like an Austin Peay this weekend, but, you're not going to test you. So, defensive line wise, though, the eye test. I'm an eye test guy. All these analytics and all this, what I call pro football hocus pocus. You guys might go for that stuff. I call that stuff pro football hocus pocus. I don't call it pro football. I call that pro football hocus. Anyway, the thing about pro football hocus pocus is they want me to believe not what I see, but what they tell me. And I'm a big believer in all these sports now because we've done it in baseball, George. Kyle Schwarber leads off for my Phillies. The guy's hitting 188. He's your leadoff hitter. I mean, you can't do better than that. Oh, well, he gets more at bats. No. Eye test. I want a guy that can run a little bit at the top of my lineup. When my front 7, I need a front 7 that can run. And in this era, I need a front 7 that can get to the quarterback. And that's the one thing they did really well the other day, which is a good positive something or other that they can carry over into their next game this week, which they will, the 1AA opponent, and particularly down at Florida. I mean, you've got to heat that guy up at Florida. You got to heat that turkey quarterback up back there.
Well, I kind of feel sorry for the Muskie kid. He was getting drilled.
Oh.
I mean, Virginia, you're absolutely right. It's amazing how far since Josh Heupel's been there that they're that much better than it's in. Now, Virginia shouldn't even have been on the field. We know they got to play the game, but they were after the Muskie kid. And if you can do that with your front guys, I mean, you're going to win a lot of football games. And it seems like Josh Heupel has done a great job recruiting, obviously, but he's kind of gotten that defense up there to the pace of what the offense plays at.
Well, and then you had look at that field there. You had that attendance record down there, George. I understand that the Titan fans are very, very upset with the Vol fans for claiming an attendance record in their building, and and Tennessee fans are telling the Titan fans that place has never rocked like we rocked it. Now, George, you might want to come down on this. You might want to take a stand. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm a uniter, not a divider, George. You know me. I'm not here to.
Yes.
I'm not here to start anything.
No, I know you're not.
Apparently, the place really rocks when Vol fans are in there, and when Titan fans are in there. I don't know. I don't. I'm just telling you what they're telling me now.
Well, let me say this: Tennessee's offense is a little more exciting.
I'm bringing that to the airways because I had a couple of listeners challenge me and said, "Would you bring that to George's attention?" And I said, "Yes, I most certainly will." I said, "George and I are friends. We can talk about anything on the show. He will not get offended. He will not get upset." But yeah, you bring up a great point. There is something about. Let me ask you guys about something about college football right now, early in the season. Am I noticing things, or are defensive lines having their way with offensive lines right now? And
there are less points being scored than there were 2 or 3 years ago.
What is this? And let me ask you, Kelly, because one of my learned listeners brought this to me and said, "I've got an idea." Is it the transfer portal? And the fact that so many of these linemen are being shuffled into these deals that it's going to take 4 or 5 games for people to figure out what they have on their offensive lines.
Well, look at what's going on. Well, I was thinking that the other night. Look at the kid from Florida State, that Jared Verse kid who went to the University of Albany. He was kind of an undersized guy, and now you look at Florida State's defense. Florida State's defense is unbelievable. Now they've gotten back to the point where they're looking like the team of the '90s. They can do it offensively. They got a dynamic quarterback, and then defensively, you look at it. So I was sitting there on the couch the other night, and I'm like, all these kids are transferring in from these schools, man, and that's it. I don't know as necessarily I like it, but that's the way of college football, and that's the way it's going to be. But if you're kind of an undersized guy that goes to a smaller school, and then you get some recognition by all these coaches watching tape, and you play against a bigger school and play good, then they bring you in. I mean, I think that is absolutely what's going on. A little bit of that. There's, obviously some good recruiting going on, but, with the transfer portal, there's a lot of colleges not even recruiting high school kids. They're leaving high school kids out, which kind of sucks. They're only getting a few of them. But I think the transfer portal has a lot to do with it, Tony. I really do.
Well, and how can you talk about college football and not talk about what Deion Sanders did?
Unbelievable.
But there are several other great stories out there. I mean, Texas State's a great story.
I used to think it was a prison.
Yeah, exactly. Look
at what Duke did last night.
Look at Duke. All these teams have reworked themselves, though, in the portal. And then you've got a guy like Dabo Swinney who says, I'm not going to get into that portal, that gum portal. Hey, Dabo, you either get into that, or you get out of college football.
You get left behind.
Because you're getting ready to go 7-5 every year. If he doesn't get into the portal, that's what's going to happen to him.
Hey, Billy, can you put that picture back up for a minute? Because I want to have a tad bit of fun here. Can you, Tony, point out to me the Virginia section?
That never even crossed my mind. Did they bring anybody? What the hell? I mean, where are they?
It looked like the chancellor may have been in a suite, because they have. I mean,
do you think their chancellor wore like some orange just so he wouldn't get accosted in the parking lot or something? I mean, look at that. They call that a neutral site game, George. That's my favorite thing about these games.
Yeah.
Hey, which brings me to this. So, Tennessee fans in a couple years are thinking that Tennessee's probably going to put a beachhead in that city and try to play a game down there semi-regularly in that new stadium. And our fan base doesn't like that because everybody wants home games. And I think college games should be played in college stadiums. I think pro games should be played in pro stadiums. I'm traditional in that manner. But George, with the shifting demographics in the mid-state, it's exploded since you've been there. It's
Oh,
exploded.
yeah.
I mean, from the beginning
Yeah.
of your radio career and the old like WTN days till now. I mean, think about the population and the amount of kids in that area. And I think it would behoove Tennessee to get in that new stadium, don't you?
Yeah, and I'm with you. I realize in the opening weekend of the season, you've got some cities that have done this: Orlando, Charlotte, Nashville,
Right.
Atlanta. I get that. That might be the one exception where I'm cool with it the opening weekend, or Philadelphia for the Army Navy game. But the question is, what do you have to charge? Because if you're Tennessee, you're used to playing in front of 98 to 100,000 at home, and all of a sudden this new dome, which I think is being built maybe 5,000 too small at 60,000. What do you got to charge to make that up?
Well, it's a great point. I mean, I know the Nashville Sports Council down there paid Tennessee a pretty penny for the
What did
opportunity to do
Virginia
that
get
game.
for their 50
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, and I don't know how the finances of that. I don't pretend to know how these people get all their money back, but I would imagine if Tennessee got that rent pretty cheaply, I guess that's what it would come down to: is how much would the venue charge them in terms of working with them, and how much would they work with them. And so that's interesting, though, that I didn't realize the capacity was going to be so small in that state. So it's not going to be like the one down in Atlanta where it's 20,000 more. It's not going to be an 80,000,
No,
60,000, huh?
Put it back up there, Billy.
That's surprising.
Okay, the Virginia section,
Yeah.
I think, is in the light post. The light.
I mean, there are no Virginia. That ain't worth it. I've never, if you showed me that, George, and I didn't know that was real, I would think that was a Photoshop,
right?
Fake news kind of fake book photo.
Your new employee found that shot.
No,
Billy.
No, my new employee took that shot. He was adorned in orange and white, and he was there. He took that shot. And great job, Billy. That's a great photo. You are multi-talented for that Southeastern 14 site you're working for.
Great.
I don't think you could pay me enough to do that.
How about that, Kelly?
I bet he could. Hey, money talks. Tell him, Tony, money talks, big dog.
Everybody has his price. Hey, Billy, we've got an opening on our post-game show. If you want to come join, man, everybody has his price.
Everybody's got a price.
Ted DiBiase.
I love it.
So where do we end this? Oh, I know where we end it. Billy Napier's not going to make it at Florida, is he?
No. There are.
How bad are they, Tony? How bad are they? How can you be in the state of Florida and at the University of Florida and be that bad?
The irony, guys, is that Dan Mullen was doing that game the other night, halftime. The Thursday night game.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan Mullen's the reason. He didn't recruit. He didn't try. And you can't take 4 years off in this league at this level. You can't just go, well, my schemes are so good that I don't need to recruit. You think Nick Saban sits there and says, you know what? my defensive schemes or hype or any of these guys, you can't just say I don't need ball players. Look at Deion Sanders, guys. They went out in one off season, okay? Cut their whole roster. Their team's better than Florida right now.
Seriously.
If you put them on the field right now, they would beat that Florida team. Yes or no? Yes?
I agree, man.
Sure might. I mean, for sure they got a quarterback. There's no doubt about that.
He's really good. And then that kid that played all those snaps, good gracious.
Hunter can play.
Can play.
And had to be in unbelievable shape in that temperature.
Unbelievable.
So, Tony, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on one thing. I do, and we'll do it at 3:00. Studs and duds.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that Colorado is at the top of the stud list, and Clemson is at the bottom of the dud list.
Well put. Dabo Swinney. Dabo done. He didn't want transfers, and he had some kind of quote today at one of his, or he told the press. He said, if these guys really start getting paid, I might have to get out. Dabo, the toothpaste not going back in the tube.
No.
So.
No.
And by the way, Dabo, those of us who follow college football know that you guys weren't exactly on the up and up in the old system. So everybody gets to kind of join the party now. No offense, Dabo. No offense to the Clemson people that are listening. I'm not trying to start anything.
No, you're a peaceful man.
Peace. I come in peace today.
Right. Put the picture back up again, Billy, so he can have one last shot to identify where you think the Virginia section is.
You know, I'm looking out there, and George, if you look closely at that scoreboard, there is a Virginia family. They decided not to come in. They sold their tickets to Tennessee people. But if you look to the right side of that scoreboard, there's like a Winnebago out there with Virginia bumper sticker on it. If you look really closely, they got decals, window decals. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. That's insane. Okay,
it's unbelievable. When they played Purdue in the bowl game,
yeah,
the Tennessee sections looked exactly like this, but Purdue had a surprisingly strong amount of people
at
that game.
That's right.
This time, the Virginia people, I think, were smart and said to hell with it.
Well, Virginia's an academic school, George, and there's not a lot of dummies there.
Right.
And
they just proved
those people found a better thing to do with their Saturday, because truly, if you walked in there from a Virginia perspective, unless you were a parent watching your kid play, I mean, that's an all-time horrendous football game to look at.
So tell people after this Austin Peay tilt, how they can hear you.
Well, I'm saving myself, George. So we only did 3 hours after the Virginia game, and we're probably going to do that about this week. 3 hours with no commercial breaks, by the way, George. And I'm apologizing to my listeners for that, because I'm saving myself for this Florida mega cast that we're going to do, because Tennessee hasn't won at Florida in 20 years. Okay. So last time Tennessee won at Florida, I had hair. I didn't look haggard. My sideburns didn't look like I look like a bad knockoff of George Jones right now in the hat I'm wearing. But listen, 20 years later, so I'm going to be well rested, and I think I'm going to do a 9-hour post game.
Oh, gosh.
Now the game starts at 7. Now, Kelly.
Gosh, Tony, are you serious?
7 Eastern, 10 Eastern. So I'll be on till about 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. the next morning. And here's the crazy thing. We'll get calls all night long if we win. I know you guys don't believe that.
Oh, I believe it.
I do believe it.
For this.
That what will Billy's role be?
Answer the phone call.
No.
Facilitating phone calls.
No.
Go get coffee.
I love Billy's on it. I love Billy's podcast. Billy can come by and bring us like the SEC report, break down Vandy's game. Who's Vandy have next week, Billy?
They've
UNLV, same time.
UNLV in Vegas.
I mean, in Vegas?
Live report from Vegas.
How many are you going?
No, I'm actually not.
How many Vandy fans make the trip to Vegas? Will it look like the Virginia deal, George?
I don't know, but I'll say this: if the Mirage would send me the right stuff, hell, I'd go.
You damn straight. The days, George, of getting like points and the free hotel and
the free buffet,
buddy, those deals are gone.
They used to have one at Circus that they touted as the largest number of items.
Yeah.
The problem was about 2/3 of the items you'd never seen before. You didn't know if they were edible, not edible. I mean,
right. That's the stuff we leave to Mark Griffin to eat. He'll eat anything.
Wow. Okay, I think we've gotten it all done, and we've learned that you're a peaceful man and you don't start anything.
Well, tclub.team is where you find us, and we've got a great report up there today. Something up tomorrow. Well, something every day, but that's where we blog and do our thing. And George, man, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and Kelly. And how's Coach doing?
I talked to him yesterday. He wanted to know how his adopted son was.
Yeah,
I told him. I told him you're doing well.
Is he golfing a bunch? Is that what he's?
Not as much as he's been down in Florida. He's got a son who's a coach down in Florida.
Mhm.
So he's been down there, and he's still in the Open. Kelly still has not been able to crack.
I'm not going to get in the Open. Obviously, it's unbelievable.
It's not only that, Kelly, but I'm watching some of these commercials leading into me, and they got him in there and not you.
I mean, I'm starting to think about
anything here, but
I am. I've tried to start it over the last few weeks. I'm thinking about suing at some point.
Right, but Tony's a peaceful man. He's not.
Yeah,
doing
he's peaceful, and it just means more. And it just means more
harmony and not discord. Yeah.
What you are trying to do is throw gasoline on a good fire, and it's working.
No. More of Billy. That's all. But guys, thank you.
Give Kyle Schwarber my best.
Oh God, I despise that guy. Thank you, guys.
We'll go to the break. We'll be back.
See you guys. Thanks.